The aim of this online webinar is for you to get an idea about the grant program. In my short presentation to begin with, I'll give you an overview of the application process and what you'll need to do to make a successful application. So if we're able to start the slides, just a few housekeeping points to start off with. Questions you can ask at the end of the session. If you want to ask a question, you can pop those into the chat function and we'll return to them later. As mentioned, the session is being recorded, so it can be shared online after the event. And if you're having any technical difficulties, then you can log off and log back in, and hopefully that will resolve any issues. So firstly, a massive thanks to the speakers. So Professor Paul Moore from Future Screens NI, he'll be able to provide a little bit of insight into how new and emerging technologies can provide opportunities within the arts. Thanks to Adam Wallace, the innovation lead, Nigel McAlpine, the immersive technology lead at Digital Catapult NI. They can discuss how Digital Catapult supports new and emerging technology. And thanks to David Williams from Ulster Touring Opera, who was one of the recipients of the last Creative Industry Seed Fund. So he can share a little bit about his experience of that and his move into using new and emerging technology. So if we can move on to the next slide. A little bit of an introduction to the program. So the Arts Council is delighted to be working with Future Screens and Digital Catapult. Future Screens both as partners to the fund and also match funders, and Digital Catapult providing support to the program. Both are bringing their extensive experience and expertise in the creative industries and new and emerging technologies. Through the grant program, we hope that there will be opportunities for artists and arts organizations to work with new and emerging technology, working at the intersection between the arts and creative technology. This award is for collaborations between artists, arts organizations, and with creative businesses and or with academia. The lead partners to the program have to be either an artist, an arts organization, or a creative business, and eligible lead applicants must be based within Northern Ireland. We would encourage all partners to be based in NI if possible, but non-lead partners outside Northern Ireland are possible, providing that you can demonstrate that the benefit of the project resides in Northern Ireland. And awards for this program are for up to 25,000, but you can apply for less. A couple of really important points, which I'll reiterate later, is just make sure you apply by the deadline. Make your application in advance, especially technical problems can either delay or prevent your application being received. So make sure we can sort that out early. You'll receive a response email to tell you your application is being submitted. Look out for that. If you don't get that, contact us. Make sure to supply all the required documents, the mandatory enclosures, and all of this will be necessary for you to be eligible. So the program objectives, we'd like to encourage cross-sectoral collaboration. That's why this program or the application must be a partnership with artists or arts organizations and creative businesses and or academia. And we hope that the artists and arts organizations bring their creativity and the creative businesses bring their creative technology expertise to help the arts projects be realized. Driving innovation in technology, we hope that through these projects, both artists and creative businesses can share their knowledge and their experience. Artists can develop digital skills and then continue to create digital artwork. So using creative technology, new and emerging technology, just as another media for your creativity. And there does have to be a final output for the project, which is either the creation of new content, products, services, or experiences. So we can move on to program priorities. So in order to be eligible, the projects have to be arts related and they have to use new and emerging technology. A couple of examples of new and emerging technology are included below, but Arts Council of Northern Ireland has partnered with Future Screens and Digital Catapult, who both have the experience and the expertise to help us with this. Through this grant program, certainly I would welcome projects that expand our understanding of how the arts interact with technology. That could be new ways of experiencing the arts for audiences, or promoting accessibility to the arts, or novel ways of utilizing technology within the arts. So briefly, to give you an idea of what you cannot apply for on the next slide, this is detailed on guidance notes page 5, but just to go over these, activities have to be arts related. So whoever you work with within the creative industries, the final project has to be focused on the arts. If your project is already commenced, if you've entered into contracts or begun work, that's not eligible. We realize that there's some preliminary work needed to scope a project, but projects can't start in earnest before the letter of commencement and the decisions on the 15th of April 2022. We'd welcome newly or recently established businesses as partners in the project, but we also will not cover their business startup costs. If your organization has staff that are already funded from other organizations, then we can't allocate budget to their time or salary because we'd be considered double funding their position. We can't allow the development or updating of business websites, which we would consider as generic business activity. Also, because this project or the program is looking for the creation of new content, things like overheads aren't eligible. And whilst we realize the importance of legal and IP costs, we also won't cover that through this project. You can ask for capital costs for up to 20% of the grant award. So hardware, software that's fundamental to the project, something that you don't already have available, but this will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So you need to demonstrate how these are absolutely vital to the project and prepare alternatives for your project in case you don't receive funding for the capital costs. We can't duplicate activities or events which already exist. And also, if there are costs that you're already receiving through Arts Council of Northern Ireland funding or any other funding to cover elements of the project, we can't fund those again. So next, a brief rundown of how decisions are made. When you make your application to Arts Council, your application will be eligibility checked by our team. One thing they'll be checking for is that you've included all of your project proposal that you've included all of your mandatory enclosures. Number one, you need to have a detailed project proposal or description. 2, detailed income and expenditure or budget for your project. 3, legal constitution for the lead partner. 4, a detailed budget for the lead partner in the year the project takes place. So that'll be 2022-23. You need your most recent set of audited certified accounts for the lead partner. We'd assume this is up until March 2021, but realize financial years can change. So just the most recent. And you need to provide management accounts up to the 31st of October 2021. So depending on when your finance year finishes, then you're filling in the gap between the final audited certified accounts and the 31st of October 21. 7th, you have to get a list of all the partners who'll be involved in the project and how they're constituted. You might want to include a little bit of information about the partners in that document as well. Lastly, if you're receiving other partnership funding for this project, then you need to include a letter of offer from the other funders. So things to remember is lead applicant has to be a resident of Northern Ireland. It must be a collaboration or partnership, and it has to use new and emerging technology. When your application is eligible, Arts Council and Future Screens will both receive your application and mandatory enclosures, and we'll conduct an initial assessment of your application. Following the assessment, we'll put together a panel of moderators with Arts Council, Future Screens, Digital Catapult, so that we can ensure that all of the assessments are put under scrutiny by all partners of the programme. And to ensure transparency of how we make our decisions, the assessment criteria are included in page 14 of the guidance notes. So for the assessment criteria, relevant existing experience in the arts and creative industries. If we can move to the next slide, thank you. So that'll be from your application form and the list of project partners you supply. So detailing their experience and skills will be great. Opportunities for joint learning, which we'll look at your application form, and that's how your partnership benefits both parties, what everybody gains from that. We're also looking at the potential for income generation. So we'll look at your application form for this. Does your project create new income streams, marketable skills, or content that can generate income down the line? And vision quality, innovation of the project. We'll look at your application form, your project description or proposal. And in this, you want to demonstrate the quality brought by each of the partners, how this project innovates within your art form or sector, and what makes it novel or what makes it stand out. And lastly, the project and organizational viability. So we'll use most of the mandatory enclosures to gauge this, to see that you have the capacity and skills to deliver the project within your timeline, and that the lead partner is going to be viable over the course of the project. So lastly, just a couple of key points. Make sure you apply by the deadline. It's 12 noon, Monday, the 20th of February. Where you can, apply ahead of time. That way we can resolve any technical issues that there are. Make sure that you've received your confirmation email, and if there's any issues, feel free to contact us about that. And make sure that you supply all of the mandatory enclosures, which are detailed on page 10 to 12 of the guidance notes. Then lastly, after you've made your application, you'll be required to complete some monetary information, which we're legally obliged to collect under Section 75. So if you keep an eye on the application portal that you've used to make the application, then that will be added when your application's been eligibility checked, and you'll have 40 hours to complete that. So, so yes, anyway, first of all, thanks to everybody, or lastly, sorry, thanks to everybody for attending. My name is Matthew Malcolm. I'm the Creative Industries Officer for the Arts Council of Northern Ireland. My details are there and in the guidance notes. Contact me subsequently if you have any questions. And I'd like to pass over to Professor Paul Moore, the Director of Future Screens NI.
Thank you, Malcolm. Matthew, I do it every time. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I do it every single time. Oh dear, that's a good start, isn't it? Hello, everyone. You're very welcome. And can I just thank the Arts Council initially for allowing us to be involved in the project once again this year. It's always one of our biggest projects in the year, and it's the one that we get a chance to see what artists like yourselves are trying to do. Just before I get into offering a few suggestions that you probably all know already anyway, if you want to go and make a cup of tea, this might be the best time to do it, because I'm the least interesting speaker you're going to hear this afternoon. If you find all that information which has been given to us by Matthew absolutely essential, but perhaps a little bit difficult to get your head around very quickly, and I don't want to be patronizing in any way at all, but my experience with working with artists is that you love making art, but aren't so keen on filling in forms. And if you feel you need some support with that, may I push you towards our Future Foundation. The Future Foundation, you'll get it on the web, and it is a body which uses mentors to support people who are developing projects. And if you apply through the Future Foundation, we will be perfectly happy to link you up with some of the mentors that we have appointed, and to try and ensure that you get the best application and get your head around everything that is going on there. So I just want to make that offer before I make a few suggestions. If you do feel that you're being a bit overwhelmed by the paperwork, because that can be the case sometimes, I'm certainly absolutely delighted that I would never be considered an artist good enough to make an application, because then I don't have to worry about it in any way. I just want to make, one or two suggestions based on what we've seen previously and the work we've been doing in Future Screens. The first is to try and think that this project is about what the future looks like. Now, I'm absolutely aware of the famous quote. I think it was Douglas Adams who said that the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. And this is your opportunity to get into the future, to think about what that future for you might look like in terms of how you do your work and where it goes. And I'm also reminded of that fabulous Rilke quote where he said that actually the future is already in us. It just needs to be manifested. And that's very much about us in a kind of osmosis, taking in all that stuff that's around us and knowing where we're going. And this is your opportunity to express where we're going. And I suppose in a way that leads me on to my second point, which is that it's also your opportunity to take a risk and to experiment. Quite often that space is not there. And it's very hard to take a risk when you are trying to sustain your practice. I saw a lovely quote somewhere recently where they said that being an artist is a poor way to make a living, but a wondrous way to make a life. And we know that you're constantly involved in trying to get projects done and trying to keep your practice on the way. But this is an opportunity for you to kind of step outside of that for a while and to think about, what is the craziest idea that I might be delivering here? Or some absolute bizarre idea that you've been carrying for years but think it's not possible. Because generally speaking, with the right technologies and the right collaboration, which I'll come back to in a moment, it is possible. I've had the privilege of working with Alex McDowell at the World Building Institute in Los Angeles. He's doing some work through Future Screens for Northern Ireland. And he has this wonderful phrase where he says that science fiction doesn't exist anymore, because if you can think it, we can make it. And I think this is an opportunity to take something that's been kind of growing in your head and that you want to do, but thinking, well, it's difficult, or it's not possible, or I'm not quite sure how I would do that. This is the opportunity to think that through and get it into that space and to think in an experimental way. It would be lovely if there was a fully flowered and blossomed project at the end of it, but that might not be what this is. It might be something which almost acts as a prototype to show the rest of the sector what is involved and how this might help the arts sector as a whole. And it's good to think about that sectoral piece. Yes, it's your individual piece of work. Yes, it's a piece of work that will be about you, but it's also a piece of work which, if you can show, having done this, this is going to advance the sector as a whole, that is going to give you greater clout within the assessment system. Because quite clearly that shows us that the project you're putting forward to us has depth. And of course, what I'm doing now is adding even more criteria onto the already quite complicated criteria that Matthew gave us. But it's not meant to be that. It's just meant to say that if you can think about it in the bigger piece, that you as an artist are representing an artistic movement. You're not just representing yourself. And hopefully that doesn't sound too grand. So risk and experimentation. It's supposed to be about an original application of technologies. Now, we know that there is nothing new under the sun. And we also know that everybody plagiarizes everybody else, but we normally do it in a way that we don't get caught. And that's fine. But we'd like you to be thinking about how you have an idea which would bring an original way to do something that you're doing already. We don't want you to change your practice. We don't want you to revise your practice to do something different. But we would like you to think about, how is this technology going to enhance the practice that I'm doing, or in some way give it different outcomes? But it's really, really crucial to remember that the technology only creates possibilities. It is you as the artist that brings the meaning to those possibilities. And I was very lucky to be involved in a small video with Deepa Man Clare, the absolutely wonderful and amazing Deepa Man Clare, who was a recipient of one of these funds previously, and who produced an app. And when I was being asked about that and that, I said, the wondrous thing about artists being involved in these technologies is that they will break them, and they will bend them, and they will ask them to do things that it's not possible for them to do, or supposedly not possible for them to do, and they will make them do it. We've seen that over 3 years in Future Screens, where people came along and we thought, I don't think they can do that. And actually they did. And more importantly, where people thought, I don't think I can do that. And they did. And at the risk of kind of spoiling his own talk, we have Davith Hall Williams with us today. And Davith started not knowing anything about the technologies that he was eventually going to use, but he was very excited and passionate about them, and went out and made sure that he found out how it would work, and is producing, as you will see, absolutely astounding work. So it's about the possibility, and then you bring the meaning to it. And that's the crucial piece, that you're bringing meaning which adds to our understanding of society and the way it operates in some way. It may have an aesthetic beauty as well. You know that better than me, but it's about how the possibilities of the technology can let you do some things in a way that you might not have done them before. That leads me on to the point about collaboration, which Matthew was emphasizing a great deal during it. I think the collaboration piece is the most important piece, but it's also the most difficult piece. And you haven't really got that very long to put it into operation and to get it up and running for yourself. but it is absolutely vital, and it's vital for two reasons. One is this is an industry which is becoming collaborative in that way. You can't really operate unless you have a number of different people involved in something and a number of different voices contributing to it in some way. It's also about the fact that not everybody can understand all of the technologies. And this is a kind of rudimentary point. You don't have to understand the technology as long as you can work with somebody who does understand it and understands what you want. And that's about an acute collaborative process. And you need to have that team around you, and they need to be prepared to work with you day and night when you're getting to the end of this process. They need to be there all the time. And that's a big kind of request of people. But it will only work if it's done in that way and it comes together in that way. And obviously it has to be what I like to call anti-disciplinary. I'm fed up hearing about interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. We need to be anti-disciplinary. What is the project you want done, and who are the people who can help you get it done? Doesn't matter where they're from, whether they're a scientist, a nutritionist, or whatever it is. We've again seen that in future screens, the most bizarre sets of collaborations which work absolutely brilliantly. But there's a proviso, and the proviso is that you need to get the team right. And I'm going to be a little bit bold here, and I'll qualify it by saying this is not me speaking, this is Sigmund Freud speaking. But he was talking about working with other people. And he said, before you diagnose yourself with depression or low self-esteem, first make sure that you're not, in fact, just surrounded by assholes. It's one of the best quotes I've ever seen about collaboration. And you need to pick your team very carefully. And you need to ensure that the people you have working around you are committed to the vision that you have, because that's what you're bringing. It's your vision. And they need to buy into that, and they need to go with that. The final thing I want to say, because I can see Matthew getting a bit freaky that I'm getting near the end of my time. The final thing I want to say is, and it's a phrase I've been using quite a lot over this last few months because I'm trying to work something up around it. You know, the first industrial revolution was about people working mainly with their hands. It was about brawn, and it was about kind of muscle. And the second and third ones were about the brain and about intellect. I think the fourth industrial revolution, particularly after COVID, is about the economy of the heart. And we need to really be doing projects that we're passionate about, because that way we will have outcomes which will shift the society in the direction we want it to go, and which will be for the benefit of most of the citizens in that society. And so make sure you're passionate about whatever you're doing and taking that forward. I did say before I started that you're going to know everything I'm going to say, but hopefully that gives us a little insight into what we will be looking for when we sit down as a panel to look at what you have provided us for. And thank you for your patience, and thank you to Matthew for giving me an opportunity to speak. What I want to do now, having talked about amazing technologists who can help and support you, is to hand over to the equally wonderful Adam Wallace and Nigel McAlpin, who are from Digital Catapult. And if they can't fix it, it cannot be fixed. Now I've just dropped you in it, haven't I?
Exactly. We're like digital plumbers. You know, we'll have a look and we'll suck through our teeth and say, you know, yep. That's us. Thank you very much, Paul. I'm just going to share my screen. I have a short presentation here I'm just going to take you through. Again, thank you for inviting us, Matthew, and it's great to see that the Creative Industry Seed Fund is here for a second round. Going back a long time when we hatched the plan that, you know, that there should be some financial support to be able to allow these, Paul describes these slightly maverick experimental ideas, and really sort of help pump priming some of the arts organisations to adopting new technologies. It was great the Arts Council were able to sort of come up, and Future Screens were able to come up with some opportunity to do this. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Digital Catapult. Some of you might have heard what we've done, others not. So give you an idea of how we fit in, I suppose, to this picture. So I'm here with my colleague Nigel. He's going to talk a bit at the end, but I'm responsible for leading innovation projects across the region. So that's working with different types of organisations and businesses principally on solving problems and using technology to do that. Nigel, who's our immersive technology lead, again, as the title describes, he's looking at the ways in which all immersive technologies, or XR as we name it, is being used across different industries, and ways to which to help and ways in which to experiment and sort of broaden the technology, but also broaden the applications. So in Belfast, in the Orma Bath, if you've not been, we have an immersive technology lab. It's one of 4 or 5 across the UK. It's great that we have it. Obviously, it's been pretty quiet, fairly dormant throughout COVID, but that's starting to change now, and David will be talking a little bit about that. But really, it's a resource there to be used, and it can be used through this project too as well. So if you're not aware of it, make contact with us, and we can tell you a bit more about how we go about doing that. But principally, we're there to sort of use it to try and grow a community of immersive technology users, but also help demonstrate how the applications of this technology could be used in a variety of different ways. And partly as well, it's a case to be able to meet some new people, also try out some of the technology if you've not tried it. And we have a very broad selection of both immersive technologies and augmented reality, virtual reality, haptics as well. So it's well worth booking a visit as we begin to open up a bit more now. So the Catapult is a UK-wide initiative, and really Digital Catapult is the UK Authority on Advanced Digital Technology. So it really looks at emerging tech rather than established tech. And how we work is how we've just been describing. I think Paul's mentioned about strength, and Paul Matthew, in collaboration in the innovation landscape. We don't do this alone. We have to work with each other to be able to reach some of the objectives. In Northern Ireland, we're really focused on collaboration, inspiration, and technology. So how we're able to really use this in inspiring ways to try and get more adoption across different types of industries. So what technology do we use? If you're unfamiliar with our working model, we have 4 main pillars. Future networks, that includes 5G and IoT. We'll soon be launching our own 5G testbed. Immersive technologies, as we've just mentioned in our lab, AI and ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning. And we have a resource in Belfast. We've got data analytics resources, so we have people working on those projects across industry, and DLT, distributed ledger technologies. So sort of might be more familiar with the blockchain. And that sort of looked at in those two top buckets here, which is advanced digital infrastructure. So how you begin to stack these to make a commons effectively use this technology to really unlock potential innovations across society. And we do this through application services, content creation, consultancy as well. So we work, again, across all sections of society, government, corporate, startup, academia, investors. We see value everywhere. And that's, I think, principally where our strengths come from. We have 2 key focus areas. The creative industries is one of those, and manufacturing is the other. And you'll know from, if you've worked with us, that this is not just within the region, this is across the UK as well. So in the GB operation, there's a huge focus on creative industries and the way in which the UK can utilise its, I suppose, its market leading, its global position as I suppose a pinnacle of creative output, how it can demonstrate the applications of new technologies in new ways. So we really want to, I suppose, utilise the benefit of that and upsell what's happening here in the region, not only I suppose to each other, but also within GB and also further afield when we get opportunities to show this across the world. So we're about delivery, but we also work then in some ways across some of the political spectrum as well, which is feeding research and evidence, sometimes from Future Screens programs, other times from other academic institutions, into the way in which policy can change, because digital technologies, whether you like them or not, are rapidly changing the world around us, and they're also impacting the way in which we operate. And we do need to leverage some of that expertise into ways in which we can, I suppose, find new funds, new ways of funding some of this work as well that's coming on. We're a national organisation. I think that's one of the key things if you want to work with us. We're trying to support what's happening here in the region, but perhaps we can find ways to link you into our other activities, as you can see in that map, across the UK. One of the key things that we're looking to do is, I suppose, is look at the access to facilities. That's why we have a resource here. We have a lab, we have a venue, We've got 6 key staff. It's going to 14 in the coming year because of the projects that we've won. So it's still important that we meet and we talk and we converse about technology, and we converse about what it can do and how we can help. And we recognise that the landscape is sometimes difficult to operate in, who to turn to. You may not be technologists, so how do you find the right people to begin to work with? Traditionally, there's been quite a divide between the way digital technologies and that sector has operated and non-digital sectors as well. So it's that sort of intersection between those two, and to build people's knowledge and opportunity. You know, we see that there's a huge education piece to be done, and this is part of it, which is great to see these early stage opportunities to be able to develop ideas, to be able to work, to be able to pitch, to be able to experiment. That's really important because that's where learning happens within organizations, but it can be disseminated across sectors as well. So our work, we work in collaboration. We have different programs. For example, the XRX program, which is an immersive technology accelerator. We work with Invest NI, we work across NI Screen, Future Screens to be able to run these types of programs. We also work directly in collaboration with private organizations, corporate organizations, SMEs to solve particular problems, and that might be helping them develop XR applications or VR applications, as we're doing with Northern Ireland Electricity Networks. As again, we work with partnerships. Sometimes these are public bodies. We're doing work with different organizations at the moment, and we also work with industry specialists as well, some of them international. So Niantic as well are an organization which works with the entire Catapult network. We try and leverage some of those international companies' expertise and opportunities right down into the region, so we get opportunities here in Northern Ireland for I suppose working with international specialists and practitioners. We collaborate on R&D programs, and we also have specific SME programs, which include Augmented Creative XR and the Machine Intelligence Gallery, which focus on different types of technology areas. And again, I'm whistle stopping through all of this, but please come and see me if you want to have a chat about, I suppose, the broader work that we do and how it can support your operation as well. So I think we're here, and this is how we plan to help, and I'll bring Nigel in here, is that we've got emerging technology knowledge. That's immersive technologies, AI, ML, data analytics. We're keen that if you do have a project idea and an idea to perhaps use some technology that you're really unfamiliar with, you can talk to us about what that might be, and we can hook you up with specialists to even see if it's feasible and what you might need to do that. And that's across those different technology areas. And don't feel afraid. I think that's one of the key things, is that nobody knows till they begin to talk and find out what they don't know. We can plug some of those gaps. We have networks, we have a community, we understand and know technology providers. So for that collaborative piece, come and talk to us about who you might need to work with if you have an idea, or if you don't have an idea, and maybe we can point you in the right direction. Nigel and I will have examples and demonstrations of different types of applications and technology in loads of different fields. So it doesn't just have to be one particularly artistic field, but it might inspire you to think differently, to think laterally, and information and signposting. You know, and I think that's one of the key things, is that if we don't know, we can point you to where you might need to go. So that's a whistle-stop tour of what we do, and I think how we can help with this project. And again, keen to use us, as in previous applications. We have been working with you guys prior to the application going in, so there may be parts of the application or the idea that you want sounded out beforehand, and we're happy to do that. So Nigel, is there anything like you'd like to add?
Hi, thanks, Adam. That was a great description of what we do. My name is Nigel, for those who don't know me. I'm the Immersive Technology Lead for Digital Catapult in Northern Ireland. And I'm currently sitting in our Immersive Lab in Ormond Baths, where amongst other things, we let people try the XR experiences that Adam mentioned to help them understand the potential of this technology, including this great collaboration with Future Screens and Arts Council. In one of the previous SIF projects, we helped Belfast Photo Festival bring their idea to life by partnering with Rosie Summers, who's a great VR artist, and we brought them together with the Arco String Quartet and married that with traditional visual artists who, prior to the project, had never touched a VR headset before, for an amazing audiovisual performance live at the Bedell's Warehouse in Belfast. And seeing all that come together was brilliant, especially during the pandemic. To hear and see a live performance and to see the participants buzz off the experience was fantastic. So perhaps that's something we can help you with. We can work out how your idea to join that lovely buzzword it's talking about at the minute, the metaverse, might play out. Maybe an introduction to the world of NFTs or non-fungible tokens. Google that, you'll be there for 3 hours, maybe more. But no matter what the idea is, we're here for guidance, introductions, or just a chance to try some of the XR experiences in the lab here. I think it's very important to reiterate what Paul said. And even I'm a technologist, I'm a creative technologist, so my background is content production at the BBC for the most part. It's as much about the creative idea and how this emerging tech can be harnessed to strengthen and help deliver the concept in a brand new way for your audience. So it doesn't have to be about the tech, it's about how your idea connects to the technology. And now, rather than me waffle on, let's hear from someone who has made use of Digital Catapult's Immersive Lab recently, as you can see from their setup behind me, and who's been an absolute pleasure to work with. It's David from the Ulster Touring Opera Company, and he can tell us more about his current immersive project. Which, when I asked him for a headline title, he simply said, well, it's like Mozart meets Black Mirror. So on that bombshell, and I pass over to Daft, who's actually downstairs in the Home Baz meeting room. Over to you, Daft.
Thank you very much, Nigel. Thank you. I'll just take a moment to share my screen. I'm just going to check that you can see that, Matthew. Is that all right?
Yep, I can see that okay.
Great, thank you. We'll just start. And I will attempt to make this brief. When I attended this version of the talk for the previous round, it was the questions and answers that was probably the most important. So I will make sure that there is time for that. Yeah, typically we are having some small technical difficulties, but hopefully this will have a chance to boot up in just a moment. If not, I will just start with the presentation. Okay, I just seem to have some small problems here with getting the slides to operate. I'll just stop sharing for a moment and reshare. Hopefully that should solve the problem. Thanks very much for your patience with everyone. So, thank you very much once again to Nigel and to Matthew and to the Arts Council for inviting me to take part in this session on the Creative Industries Seed Fund. This presentation will focus on the augmented reality projects that we're developing, with a particular focus on the AR Don Giovanni project, which was funded in the first round of the Seed Fund. I'll be going into detail about what the projects are and how we've created them and our vision for the future. But I'd like to start the session by talking about why an opera company is developing work in augmented reality. It's vital that we grow audiences for opera. and to make sure that this future audience is as diverse and inclusive as possible. This is a picture of a UTO Explore Opera workshop that took place on Saturday, the 15th of January in 2022 at the Struhl Arts Centre in Oman for a group of young people between the age of 8 and 12. This is what educational opera can look like prior to the pandemic. And thankfully, UTO has been able to return to this kind of in-person engagement. However, since 2020, opera companies have had to radically rethink their approach to engaging with audiences of the future. While UTO has begun exploring possibilities for immersive technology just prior to the pandemic, the need to create access to opera above and beyond in-person events has accelerated our work in this area. During Deepa Manclair's webinar at Brestival 2021, she described augmented reality as an area of massive growth in the future due to the democratization of compatible mobile devices. Here's an image of the game that has come to define the AR breakthrough to the mainstream Pokemon Go. This was my first experience of AR back in 2017, and I've always wondered whether there was the potential to use this technology to create opera. As an interesting side note, the company that makes Pokemon Go, Niantic, have recently opened up their development tools through the Lightship program. I founded UTO in 2019 with the aim of creating a company that worked to increase access to opera across the province of Ulster. However, I was interested in reaching beyond the venues that we work with, and Deepa very clearly articulates the benefits of working with augmented reality. AR gives us the ability to not only reach out to younger audiences who may not be interested in coming to the theatre yet, but also we're aware of the accessibility benefits of this kind of work for anyone who's not able to attend our performances, as well as the potential demographic reach of the technology. I'm also interested in the implications of bringing opera into AR. While on the one hand, it's a fun exploration of what's possible through immersive technology, it also raises important questions about viewership explored in Walter Benjamin's essay, The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction. This is why, when the Arts Council of Northern Ireland Seed Fund was launched in January 2020, we worked with our partners Centurial and Volograms to devise the AR Don Giovanni project. The funding was supported by Future Screens and I, Digital Catapult and I, as with Arts Council, so as with this programme. And it's designed to encourage cross-sectoral collaboration and to drive innovation. I think very interestingly, how we met our creative industry partners is a very important piece of information. The process for that was that I attended an event like this for the first round. And after that event, I made contact with Adam, who introduced me to a range of immersive partners who might be interested in working on an AR project. And it was David Trainer from Centurial who began to have conversations with me about what that project may be. And so they became our first partners. So that's a software company in Belfast. And then David introduced me to the team at Volograms, who are a volumetric recording studio in Dublin. And therefore, that's how we created our partnership for the program. Our project is inspired by a project undertaken by Google and Queensland Opera in 2019, where they explored sections of the magic flute in AR. Our project is designed to create an augmented reality opera experience based on the final moments of Don Giovanni's life. The scene will be brought to life through in a person's living room, with the set becoming the person's house and home. Rosram Gogan was cast as the role of Don Giovanni, and Northern Irish-based Alan Ewing as the commendatore. We wanted the project to be a 5-minute experience, whereas it's a 7-minute scene in the opera, and it usually includes a third character, Don Giovanni's servant Leporello. And so we commissioned a new piano reduction to reduce the scene to 5 minutes and to cut out poor Leporello from the scene. On the 22nd of September 2020, following all government guidelines, we held the audio recording of the scene at St. Paul's Church in Knightsbridge. We recorded the audio in multi-track in case we're able to bring in spatial audio elements into the final project. And we also worked on the blocking for the scene and filmed this for reference as we prepare for the volumetric recording. We then had to put our project on hold during the lockdown in early 2021. And thanks to a Future Screens NI proof of concept grant, we were able to pick up the project again in October 2021. The next phase of the project took us to Dublin, where we undertook the volumetric recordings of the performers on the 2nd of December 2021. Because the green screen studio is only large enough for one performer to stand in, the performers had to record their blocking individually. The nature of their movements also had to be more specific, as fast movements can't be recorded well, on numerous cameras. Post-production will take place here in Belfast, where Centerreal and UTO's application developer, Robbie McKinney, will bring together the visual and the audio elements to create a volumetric experience. This will be done via Vologram's Unity plugin, as well as the Unity features such as plane detection to locate the assets in real space. And we're delivering this via an app. So that app will hopefully reach beta testing stage in February and be released in March. So it will be a public presentation of our work. I will very quickly go through our remaining slides and then hand back so that we've got time for questions. But it's interesting to see what the seed fund has led on to, and a more expanded version of this can be found on our YouTube site as well. So as well as the Vologram's work, we've actually picked up more and more ways to work alongside Futurescreen's NI, including attempting to create volumetrics here in Belfast. This gives us the opportunity to experiment more with our work, as time in a volumetric studio is incredibly focused given the costs. And to do that, we're using a piece of software called DepthKit. So we are currently undertaking our pilot testing for creating our own volumetric piece of opera. We've had to work in some surprising places, including a bowling club in Belfast, which we turned into a DIY volumetric studio over the summer of 2021. We then had the pleasure of presenting our work at the Beyond conference in 2021 in the Titanic Center. And here you can see some images of our work, including an image in the center there of the asset that we were testing, as seen on the iPad. And we're also on the XRX program as well, which means that we can work with composer Brian Irvine to create a new opera for teenage audiences, and also using the facilities upstairs in Digital Catapult to create our own volumetric capture studio in Belfast for the first time. I will actually hand back there. As I mentioned, there is a more elaborated version of this presentation on YouTube, but I do want to make sure that you've got plenty of time to answer questions. So I'll hand back to Matthew there. So thank you very much for all of your time.
That's great. And David, thanks very much for the presentation, as well as to everybody else. Paul, thank you very much for the presentation, and Adam and Nigel. So this is in the Q&A section. So if you want to post up your questions in the chat, then we can try to answer them. There's only, I suppose there's only really one that I can see at the minute. Firstly, apologies to anyone having issues with sound, but it seems to be that the sound's clear for everybody else, and all of the panelists have also been muted, so there shouldn't be any echo from us. So the first two questions were from Corinna. The delivery phase is very easy for me to answer. That's between the 15th of April 2022 and the 28th of February 2023, and you can find details of that on the guidance notes as well. But also the question about what is machine learning. So Adam has put up a link to describe machine learning there, but I don't know, Adam, if you want to say anything else about machine learning. And I don't know whether it would, maybe would it be useful to touch on AI as well, since those two are tied up within the same element of Digital Catapult?
I just think in this instance, if you have an inquiry, if you want to talk to us about AI or machine learning or the application of it, because I suppose there's a theoretical element, which is how it begins to work, which is, I suppose, algorithms applied to data sets, but it's also linked to how you gather data and where the data is coming from and what type of data you have, and what you want to do with it. So it quickly speeds off into I suppose different areas. It's not Terminator. It's not the idea of actual intelligent sentient machines that are coming to run the world, or at least not yet. However, the application of AI in types of projects that you might be thinking about is that, I suppose in the first round, we were talking about venues pre-COVID. This was, how might venues harness information coming from their users? So they capture a lot of information when you book a ticket, for example, and it could be that even when you come into the venue, how you use your phone in the venue, what type of behavior you have in the venue, where might you go to first, if it's a gallery, if it's a theatre, if it's an art centre, a multidisciplinary art centre, how you may be able to use your data, how might you be able to use your thoughts and your experiences on the show, and how might a company begin to use some of that information and process it. It becomes really valuable when you begin to have large amounts of data. So even within industry, we're seeing not many companies really picking up AI, certainly definitely using ML, which is, I suppose, the use of data sets to try and predict and analyze and see when things might or might not be happening. However, you do need to gather a lot of data. But if there's any information, any companies or any individuals who are interested in that element of, okay, how do I capture data? How do I use information? How do I present information? Then I'm very happy to meet with you, and we can hook you up also with Brian Told, who's our AI and data science lead at Digital Catapult, to talk more about that.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Adam. On the subject of AI, Paul, I know that Future Screens have funded textile projects that incorporate algorithms and artificial intelligence to create an arts project. I wondered whether that would be a good example, even to illustrate in just a minute for people. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, because the craft sector, in conversations I've had with them, they find it difficult to think about how they might take those traditional crafts and apply some of those new technologies to them. Without, it's not that they don't think about how they can apply the technologies, but what they don't want to do is in some way undermine the skill in the craft that they already have. So we worked with Louise Taylor, who works in tapestry. And we funded some work with her, but eventually that became a major project where she's working with Darryl Charles, who is one of our experts in AI in Ulster University. And he has taken all the data they can gather around COVID and the COVID data over the last 2 years. And he has applied AI algorithms to that to create patterns, which look a little like snowflakes to my mind, but I'm a bit of a Philistine, but I think they look slightly like snowflake type patterns. And then Louise is using those to produce what we're going to call the pandemic tapestry. And the interesting thing about what she's done around that, around collaboration, is she's brought in 6 other people to work with her on that tapestry. And then she's created her own kind of little mini creative industries cluster, because she's been working, for example, with traditional boat builders on Lough Neagh who haven't had any work, and they're making the wooden frames for all the tapestries that she does. So she's created this kind of little mini piece out there, to the extent that her business is now phenomenal, simply by allowing. And I would have to say, if Louise was here, she'd say she was nervous about it. And the first thing she'd tell you is she doesn't understand how it works. That's fine. I don't understand it either. But it produced for her what she needed, this beautiful pattern that she and her colleagues could then work up. So that might be an example of how this might work.
Thanks very much, Paul. We have a question from Paddy about the upper limit of capital costs for items on the programme. The stipulation in the programme is that capital items or capital costs can't exceed 20% of the grant amount, and that it's necessary that you make a case for why that's absolutely fundamental to your project. So the limit is just that, it's 20%, and we'll assess them on a case-by-case basis. So it's just a case of whether you can show how it's vital and you don't currently have access to those items. We also have a question from Maura about app development, and she said, does she need to bring her own software developer, or is that something that we can help with? So because this project or projects from the Creative Industries Seed Fund all rely on collaboration, you need to have the partnership. You need to have the partnership in place. So you need to find the software developer that you're going to work with. Now, if you want to contact me, I can make contact with Future Screens and Digital Catapult and see whether they maybe have ideas of people that you could approach. And then so we can help in terms of creating contacts or creating connections for you to explore. But it would be up to you then to contact parties and check whether they could deliver what you want and interest on that basis. So I hope that answers the question. And then I'd seen one more question come in, which is how many projects can we fund through this round? So 4 is the upper limit of the number of projects that we can fund through this. So the budget will stretch to 425 pots. There's another anonymous question. Would a creative innovative use of technology primarily to serve a wider social purpose be eligible for the fund? Or is this to primarily serve art of an aesthetic purpose? The answer to that is the eligibility criteria are that it has to use new and emerging technology. It has to be a partnership, and the lead applicant has to be an NI. How you use technology to deliver a project is up to you in your project description. It's not necessary for projects to have a wider social purpose. But if that's something that you want to explore through your project, then that's absolutely fine, and that's completely up to you. So I hope that answers that. And if I've quickly touched on questions, if there's something that you want to ask me about in any more detail, feel free to get in touch and I'll try and answer as best I can. I'll have a quick look at the chats and see if there are any other questions. Just to clarify, Paddy, where you've said is the cost for capital, can that be just one item? If you make a case for that, then yes, we would consider that. And I'll explore that more afterwards and just double check that that's the case. And if you want to contact me directly, then I can talk in more detail about that. And we have another question. If the project budget is bigger, say 250,000, does this fund have any issues with match funding from other public funds? Or should it be broken into parts with the seed fund covering one aspect? You can match this with other public sector funds. The complication is that you can't add this to projects that are already underway. So this has to be a new project. So if you were applying to the seed fund and you were applying to other funds, then yes, you can match this with other funds. The stipulation is we need a letter of offer for other funds that you're going to be awarded. The complication here is at the point that you can't undertake a project until a letter of commencement comes from us. That may mean it's very risky for you applying for other funds. So it's a case of whether you can get all the funding in at the same time to be able to, I suppose, glue it together into one project. And if it's easier, as Paul was saying, this can be used for you to create a prototype or produce an element of something that you want to explore further down the line. So it may be that it's easier to have this as a standalone project that's going to feed into something else. But I suppose what I would say is if you want to discuss that, you can contact us directly if there's a specific case that you're trying to or that you want to talk through. So I hope that answers the question. And also at this point, I meant to say that on the panel, we also have Joanne Forsyth, who's one of the officers who would look at eligibility checking. So if there's anything I say that she wants to jump in on, please do. I think we have, okay, we have another couple of questions. We have a question, can you work with a combination of old technical, like 16mm film, and VFX and augmented reality elements? For this, what we're hoping through the fund is that you're able to realize your artistic vision, but use new and emerging technology as the media through which you do that. So there's an element of conserving your artistic practice and doing what you do, and then an element of how you realize a vision for a project with new and emerging technology. So absolutely, because if 16mm is your art form, then the process that you're used to using, you can have that as a fundamental element of this project, but then it's how you work into the project, your existing art form, using new and emerging technology and creating a collaboration with that. And
it's
again,
not much older than opera, so I think you, if we can do it, then you should be fine.
Indeed. And one more question I can see for now. Is it okay for to have one of the collaborators in the project to be elsewhere in the UK, not NI. So the criteria here is that the lead applicant has to be from Northern Ireland. Other partners can be from elsewhere, but you have to demonstrate how primarily the project is based in Northern Ireland, benefiting Northern Ireland, and how the NI partners, I suppose, retain the benefit of the project. And I think that's all the questions for now. So it's always a little bit crazy for me to try to go through comments at the end of a webinar. I wondered whether any of the other panelists have any closing remarks they'd like to make. Yeah, so if anybody wants to jump in, feel free. No? Okay, in that case then, if we haven't got any other questions, then I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for coming along. Best of luck with your applications. Feel free to contact us if you have any other queries. And also massive thanks to all the other speakers and panelists for coming along. It's great to have you on board and great to get your input to this, because I always have to do just the practical, here's what you have to do. So your stuff's always so much more exciting and interesting than mine. So thank you all very much.
Thank you.